that particular aspect. So we'll start with property acquisition, then we can then delve into the subject of estate planning. I'll be brief in all the aspects. Should one then require a detailed advice applicable to their particular situation, they may then contact the respective professionals, be it their lawyer or an estate agent, as the case may be. So that's what I'll do. So the first thing, if one wants to buy a property, what do they look out for? So properties are divided into two. There are now what are known as immovables and then movables. So we deal mostly with immovables. Movables are not very difficult to deal with, unless possibly if you are talking of acquisition of movables like shares and other securities that are traded on securities exchange like the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, then we can specifically deal with those ones. So I'll start with the steps that must be followed by one when acquiring an immovable property. So the first thing is, when you are buying an immovable property, you have to first identify the property. So let's say you want to buy a piece of land. The land must be identified. Identify the piece of land. In most cases, one can actually get to know the property through some estate agents. So we have various estate agents, companies that deals with property. Then secondly, there are also some private arrangements where a buyer and the seller can just meet and then they discuss and transact. Then also one can actually get to know an offer or a sale in the newspaper. So we'll look at the various disadvantages in using the three different routes. So firstly, one can acquire through an estate agent. That's a simple process. They are reputable agents. Then I must say there are also bogus agents. So many bogus agents are out there, and those ones actually collude with some state officials, and they can actually steal from people, and deprive desperate home seekers of their hard-earned funds and monies. So when you choose an estate agent, when you get a property that's being advertised by an estate agent, let's say on Facebook or on their website, you need to identify the estate agents. Also try and seek to see if they are registered with the estate agents council, then do your due diligence. In most cases, if you get the reputable ones, the transaction will be fairly simple. But once you get an estate agent, what you must know is an estate agent is a person who's after their own commission. They usually get a commission of 5% from a sale. So when it comes to advising you as their client in quotes, sometimes they don't give you all the information, or they want to rush you to get into a transaction so that they quickly get their commission, because in most cases, they will put a clause in the agreement that the commission becomes due and payable on signing of the agreement. So the agreement, once it's signed and before you have a guaranteed title, they're actually now entitled to their 5% commission. Whether or not the agreement, the transaction sells through or not, they will put a clause which says they are just entitled to that 5%. So we need to, it's very important to consider that. So then secondly, when you are buying, when you have just transacted, get a property, get a person who's selling, and you are doing a private transaction, it can sell through, but then you also need to get now a proper advice, and then there are things to watch out. So what I'll consider doing is, after the presentation, me and my team will just try do a write-up and then share it for free, free of charge with everyone, so that you can also just understand those elementary steps, so that whilst you are transacting on your own, you are not duped of your hard-earned monies. Then the last way of acquiring how to know about an immovable property, it's also through adverts in the newspapers. So adverts in the newspapers, they are serious disadvantages. So I'll start on the weaknesses of newspaper adverts. So in most cases, real people disposing of a property rarely advertise in the newspaper, especially in the classified section. Maybe some people may actually tell me if ever they had a successful transaction having gotten of a property offer in the classified section of the newspaper. So with newspapers of late, as lawyers who deal with conveyancing and estates and real estate, what we have realized is most people who con others, who steal from people, who use those newspaper articles. So they'll place an advert in the newspaper. When we were growing up, we were taught that even if you find a word in a newspaper, that's the correct spelling, no one can, it can be disputed. It cannot be disputed. So there is that element that if something is in the newspaper, then it's authentic. But the papers are out to make money, so a person can put an advert, then say, this stand number so and so is on sale. So they usually con people using stands. They use stands in most cases. So they will advertise stand number so and so, clean title deed available. You can view at any given point in time. So you realize that they use stands in most cases, because when you get to a stand, it will be just vacant. There's no one there. So they just identify a piece of land, then look for its number, survey, and then they can actually then get to the deeds office and do the deed search. Then they get a copy of the deed. They will tell you maybe the original title deed is with my lawyer, so they'll get a copy of the deed. Then in most cases, most sophisticated frauds, they then clone the ID. They get the details of the title holder, then they make a fake ID, they put their face on the ID, and then the details of the title holder. So if you get that information on face value, while you're high, it's highly likely that you are going to believe this person and say, yes, I've seen their ID, and the title deed is there. They're saying the original is with their lawyer. So once you get that, so you actually engage, then they'll tell you they're estate agents, because sometimes they'll, they in most cases would want to deal with their victim by not giving them actual information and not making sure that they are not meeting the person who is said to be the owner. So some would then masquerade as estate agents and say, yes, we're the ones advertising, we're given it by so and so. You never go to their offices at all particular points in time when dealing with them. They want to insist on coming to where you are. So that's what happens in the city. It has happened last year, I think. At our offices, we had almost 4 such cases, but then the machinations weren't successful, because we do a bit of some thorough due diligence. So once they are then put under scrutiny, they ship out quickly, then the transaction just dies down. So that's what happens. So if you get a property being advertised in a newspaper, first and foremost, you must always suspect something when you are handling that. Then the other thing, you must not be quick to pay. how they deal with their victims, they tell you that the guy is coming from Chireds, for example, and he wants to go back. He has some pressing issues and stuff. So can you come and sign? Then they produce the deed. Can you sign the agreement? Then pay the deposit. Initially, they will actually ask you to pay for their bus fare so that they come to Harare. So once you agree and you pay a deposit quickly, you are gone. Then the other thing, they also want to work on the human element, which is greed of gain. In most cases, the prices will be sometimes too good to be true, and that's how many of us fall for that. And most probably, if it is your first home equity, you have this, you have this desire to own something, and you are after it. You have saved your money, then you just want to buy it. So, guys, when buying an immovable property, you need to take your time. Most critically, when it is something that you just got from a newspaper, you need to be very, 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 very careful. So what we have done ourselves is, myself and my other guys and my team, we have a checklist of things that should be looked out for when buying a property, an immovable property. And these are there goes the list. Firstly, you must ask for a title deed. What is the title of the property? Does it have a title? If you want to buy a property, what is the title? What is the nature of the title? So if a person owns a property, they must have a title to read. Does it have a title deed? If it has a title deed, you get a copy. You conduct a deed search, find out if the person who's selling is the owner. If the owner is not there, then you also need to go a step further. Where are they located? Why are they selling? What is the reason for selling? Then, if they're outside the country, do a power of attorney. Then thereafter, if it's a stand with a property that is a house, a stand that is a house, you can go and ask the person in the house, who is the owner of this property, where are they? Then, if they are, tenants, you ask them about where their landlord is. If the person who they've advertised to you is not the landlord, the tenants are it's highly likely that they are going to tell you. And also, if there's a person occupying the property, after you visit with whoever will be representing presenting themselves to be an agent, you can always go back, and find out more when they have gone. So that's the beauty of buying where there is already a house or where people are staying. You can get more information on the face of it without getting into much details that requires professional advice and assistance. So that's what you do. So with stands, guys, you need to be very worried. Then the other thing is, people usually can, with the way our cities are being developed, people, developers are failing us. So sometimes people are ending up buying properties that are underdeveloped. If you look at suburb like Senton along Chinhoy Road, it's just a messed up development. So those who are outside the country and you are doing diaspora remittances, it's very important also that you do proper, you do a bit of some due diligence, some basic due diligence. Sometimes if you don't do due diligence, you lose more in value than you would have. Do you engage a professional or just send someone here to do? So when you are doing these things, it's also important you consider professional people like Homelux, as they have a reputation of doing proper developments. So, but people who have done developments like the one at Senton, there are a lot of disputes there, double allocation of stands. So you actually need to make sure that there are no double allocations. If there's a double allocation, there's likely to be a dispute there. So instead of enjoying your property, you end up fighting, of which that is not what you would have wanted. you just wanted to get your property, then move, and you end up finding yourself in more serious trouble, having to spend money trying to, enforce your rights. So that's not right. So carefulness is very, 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 very critical. So certain properties are held by way of cession. Cession is just an agreement where the person who owns the title is there await, there's a parent deed. So if a property is still a whole lot and it's held by the state, to have a deed of grant, then from the deed of grant, you create several subdivision titles, then you subdivide, then you parcel out to the various new owners of the different lots. So in that particular instance, in most cases, because of that, developers are failing to properly service the stand, especially to put bituminous starred roads. They are failing to get compliance certificates. So it takes time to get your title deed, so they go by way of cessions. So you can actually buy a property by way of cession with an agreement. So the rights are then transferred to you, and there's no title. So that's the way of acquiring an immovable property. So then if you are acquiring a property and there's already someone living in the property, you also need to see the terms of their lease agreement, because sometimes some lease agreements will give people what are known as first refusal rights. First refusal rights are rights to purchase first before the owner can sell to any third party. So if you buy a property that has a first refusal right, then you are likely to have a dispute, because the tenant may actually say, I want to buy myself, or you didn't give me the right to buy. Then they can get a court order to just stop you from buying, or sometimes would have already paid, and then you may risk losing money. So you need to see the terms on which the sitting tenants are residing in the house, so that you watch out for first refusal rights or options. Then you must tell the landlord to then cancel the lease agreement and then give this person notice. That then now depends on whether or not you want to buy the property for lending or for purpose of occupying. So if you want to occupy, then you must know that the person that it must be a condition that they must terminate their lease agreement and make sure that is sorted, so that when you get in, when it's time to get into the house, then you get in. And also on buying properties, we also recommend that it's important that you don't pay once off. If there are conditions precedents, you put conditions to say who paid the purchase price and stagger as follows: 5,000 deposit, it's held by a lawyer, possibly. Then upon the happening, maybe a confirmation that the deed is clean, and several other things I spoke about earlier on, in order, then you can then pay the balances. So that's essentially that about immovables. Then the most important thing to consider on a property is whether or not it has been up to date as far as bills are concerned, council bills, and your electricity and water, because it's just that we had inflation. But prior to this hyperinflationary environment, you would realize that a property could have a debt of about 5,000. Arrears, let me say, electricity arrears to the tune of 5,000. That's a lot of money. If you're buying a property for 60,000, then there are arrears for electricity in the sum of 5,000, then 2,000 for council and water bills, then that takes you to 7,000. Sometimes when you realize that this person would have walked away with your money, so it's very important to just go to city council, check for the bills, go to ZESA, see if the property is up to date, then get those ones. Have a watertight agreement which says that if all the bills and that are accrued, all the bills that are accrued and expensive before the agreement will be taken care of by the person disposing. So that protects you. And then if you are transacting through a lawyer or an estate agent, you are going to say part of the money that's held by the lawyer will take care of those bills. Or you are going to say, if you are transacting on your own, part of the money I'll pay you after I'm satisfied that all bills are up to date. I hope I'm not moving too fast. We all on it. I promise I'm going to make sure you get a write-up on the procedures that are just elementary. We'll just simplify them so that we are all up to date. So that's that about immovable properties. Then the other thing that has been afflicting our society is the issue of land barons. So there are people who have been parceling out land illegally of late. So we need to check out on those ones. There are many areas that have so many disputes, like Solomio Estates, some areas in Rua. So when we want to buy, let's make sure that we watch out for such like issues so that we don't end up in trouble. Right. Then now I'll go to the next stage of the presentation, which is about estate planning. So with estate planning, as we are living, we must death is a certainty, something that surely that is surely going to happen. So in many instances, what we have realized is that people don't plan for their posthumous affairs. They don't plan when they are gone. So it's very important that whilst we are still alive, we put our houses in order, so that when we die, we leave everything in good order. In most cases, you realize that there are too many disputes that arise as a result of failure to plan properly before one dies. So how do we plan for our estates? So estate comprises of that which we own. Even in the biblical times, people would say, tinogowa nhaka. Saka kana munhu achiri mupenyu anofana kugadzirira nhaka, kuti vanhu kana vachinge vasara vazive zvekusara vainazvo, vazive zvekuita, uyezve pasave nemakakatanwa. So it's very important to plan your estate. So how does one plan? How do one plan their estate? You can plan your estate personally, or you can plan as a family. So the first simple thing to do when you are planning estate is to simply draft a will. A will is a last document made by a person known as the testator, which indicates and states how they would want their properties to be administered after they are gone. So unonyora vanhu vaunoda kuti vazowana property yacho zvoenda zvakadaro. So you can plan by way of a will. So then you list so there's the testator anenge anyora will yacho, then there are the beneficiary, then there's an executor. So that's about the will. Executor, kana munhu achinge afa, executor ndiye anosara achiona nezvemaproperties acho. In most cases, for vanhu vanonamata nekuenda kuchechi, it's very important to deal with these issues. If you die without a will, the properties are then the executor in most circumstances is appointed by the master of high court. Kana master of high court anoappointa executor, sometimes kana paine disputes anoappointa munhu asingaenderani nezvemunotenda. And you realize that many property that should have been used for mission and to advance the kingdom of God will end up in the wrong hands. And I will not hide this. Most executors are actually thieves. And also in the master's office, there could be collusions. Pana vanondozikanwa kunzi ndianopiwa estate yakanuna. And you know what will happen. So an estate that you leave intact, it's stripped of valuables because the person who had these things failed to plan on their succession whilst they are still alive. Once you die, then your affairs are now in the hands of others, third parties. So if you read the book Counsels on Stewardship by Ellen White, you find counsels on the importance of wills. So it's very, very important to have that in place. Just imagine you are an elder and your estate now is being administered by a person who actually smokes marijuana and maybe drinks alcohol. And they are the one determining the fate of your family. Just imagine. So it's very important. So I encourage people in most cases to make sure that they have wills, right? So the other way of securing your estate is by way of registration of trusts. So a trust is trust is comprised of assets and liabilities. So you can incorporate your family trust, then you have your trustees, the founder. In most cases, that could be the father. Let's say, for example, that Theophany Matondo is the founder of the Matondo Family Trust. Then Matondo will get maybe 3 or 4 people besides his wife to be the trustees. So the trustees will then oversee the affairs of the trust. So you have the founder, you have the trustees, then you have the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are the people who are going to be enjoying the proceeds from the trust, whatever they are given by the trust. So a trust can then, in the name of the trustees, it can then acquire properties. It can then acquire shares in companies. It's a very good way of administering your estate, because once you die now, the trust will remain. The trustees are there. If you put the trustees as very honorable and responsible person, you are going to ensure that there is perpetuity. You can also put some objects in the trust, how you'd want the properties administered. Possibly one trust that I've seen, a person can actually say, no, if one of my kids gets married to a non-believer, then they are not going to, get any benefit. If one becomes a homosexual, no benefit to accrue to them. So you put your conditions, and behind you can also put what is known as a letter of wishes. So a trust is very important. The Mikus have trust, and then there's the Rhodes Trust. And if you go to South Africa, it's known as the Jewish Colonial Trust. Those are trusts that have been in existence for over 50 years. A trust can open a bank accounts, they can administer the properties, your kids can be taken to school, so their education will be funded by the trust. So in good economies, and if you find people who are very responsible, a trust will take you to the next stage. Then the other way of securing properties and estate, you also plan through companies. You can register your companies, then you are shareholders. Now, if in most cases, what I would recommend people is to then have your trust holding shares in the company. Then the company can then own, let's say, a certain property. So if you want to dispose, sometimes you, instead of disposing of a property directly out of a trust, you can just say the company is just disposed of the property. Then that's it, right? So the difference now, why I would prefer a trust in most cases is that a trust does not, get taxed. The taxation is on the beneficiaries. So when benefits accrue to the beneficiaries, they are the ones who get taxed. So with a trust, there's a tax reprieve. And I'll be honest with you, our laws here in Zimbabwe, they are not very good when it comes to taxation of trustee of trust. So let's say the benefit that accrues to Mr. Theophanis' daughter is just for school fees. I wouldn't see someone then seeking to take school fees. But now with just a will, when you die, then the estate must pay 4% estate duty to the Master of High Court. What you realize is that estate duty, sometimes when the amount of money or the value of the estate involved is considerable, estate would actually be a lot of money. Let's say a person is valued at 4 million, and then their estate duty is 4% of that. So you realize that's a lot of money. So you could have your money saved by just deciding to have a trust instead of a will. So those are the advantages of a trust, taxation, then perpetuity, then also a trust exists outside of the trustees. So when the trustees do anything that's illegal and stuff, the trust will not be rendered liable. So it can go on. Then certain trusts have conditions, they get audited. I think one trust that's doing very well here locally, though it had some disputes, is the trust of General Vitalis Msungagawa, the one that controls Tinwald School, that A school in Tinwald, Harare. It's a very good trust. It's the one, so there's a board of trustees running the college, still going on. Then in the trust, you can also put clauses that part of the monies will also go for charity. Some people I've seen who are actually alive in this case, I've done work for, they actually put the check to say a certain portion of my estate generated from my estate by the trust will go towards, let's say, Zunde, advancing the mission. Then you have responsible people on the board of trustees. Like you could say, one of the trustees or two of the trustees at any given point in time must be elders, serving elders in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. You could also say that, and then maybe partly say the trust shall finance the children's home, like Simbaredenga School. Then that reminds me of the text that says, "Dead yet speaketh." So whilst you're dead, we could plan as we rest in the grave. We could have planned the things that continuously advance the gospel whilst we are away. By just putting the affairs of our estates in order, we can do much. If you leave things to chance, I can tell you chance will reign supreme and the chaos will be the order of the day. Let me give you this example. So we had one of our elders who didn't have a will, or neither did he set up a trust. So he left his estate. He had his first wife, who he married, who was not an Adventist. No. The first wife was an Adventist. Then she died. Then she married a second wife who was not an Adventist. But because this man was strong in the faith, he managed to convince this lady to become an Adventist. So while they were alive, they acquired a lot of properties, and then the children. So this man had two sets of children with his first wife, then with the second wife. So when he died now, his things were haphazard. Then the children of the eldest wife then started fighting with these children of the new wife. These ones are with their mother, and that one. He was a very rich man with 500 hectares of titled land, land in many parts of the country. He had his company. So these people started fighting. So once you start fighting, when you go to the Master of High Court to do your estate registration, the master is likely to give you what they call an independent executor. So they went to the master of High Court, they got an independent executor who then became the master. So executors have a lot of power over the estates. If they do an inventory, they can sell to pay themselves. In most cases, they are the biggest beneficiaries. And if an estate is not well planned, upon the death of the owner of the properties, there can be endless legal battles, like real. And the biggest beneficiaries are lawyers. I can tell you one dispute that I'm still handling at the present moment. Oh, no. I've actually given the file to some juniors. But you see, when I started practicing, I was doing that matter, and we obtained some court orders to stop certain things. But then I realized this person had died in around 2001. So I only started practicing in 2015. So all this time, these people had been fighting. And then you realize the biggest winner was the executor. So what I then did was to call all these beneficiaries and sit them down. There were about 15 children born of this man and his 3 wives. So I called them together and said, guys, look here, you are depleting what your father worked hard for over the years, because you've just decided to be a hard-headed and just to pick disputes where there are no disputes. And look now, since 2005, this estate agent has been billing fees for administering the estate. And he has been selling some of your properties for peanuts. But because you guys have been divided, you have been failing to rein in, because what was reigning supreme in your hearts is the hatred of each other. So I spoke to them, they saw the light, and now they are negotiating. I hope they will successfully negotiate and meet at a common position and then divide the estate. So these are real things, guys, which happen when our estates are not planned. And this is very, very spiritual. I'll just once again refer you to a book by Ellen White, Counsels on what? Counsels on Stewardship. It's actually being a good steward to have your estate very, very planned. So here it says, I'll read, properties often bequeathed to children and grandchildren only to their injury. So God is also, for believers, God is also a claim to our estates. As we plan our estates, let's remember the mission, right? Then as part of estate planning, if you leave things to chance, in most cases, you realize people lose things, immediate families lose things to extended families. We must agree there are also grieved people within our families. So in most cases, while when a man dies, when a husband dies, while the wife is still bereaved, some people are actually asking, where are keys for the Jaguar, this man and that. So because this woman is still bereaved and depressed by the death of her loved one, she is not more careful on property. And if your things are not well taken care of, some of the vouchers found in certain families would have moved in to squander the estate, take positions. You hear and so has already taken these things. And in most cases, the widow is left overburdened by virtue of the fact that their husband failed to plan ahead of time. So there is room. Let's make haste whilst the sun shines. If you are not up for something, you fall for anything. So if you don't plan, then you fall for anything. So we need to take care of the extended family. Then in our trust, we can also put our mothers, fathers as beneficiaries. Then also part of estate planning, if you have a property and you buy it for your mother, where you don't want them to own it, because sometimes possibly they are old, you can register what is known as a usufruct. That is a right to use until one dies. So you register a usufruct. As long as they are alive, they will live in that house. Once they are dead, then it reverts to your estate. That's another clever way of doing it. Because people are saying, what if my mom dies? What if I die first? So you register usufruct for them, then they can live in the house. When they die, it reverts to the main estate, then it can be used by your children. Then one most important thing on estate planning is also to train the heirs, people who take over. We have realized that many people have worked hard, but along the way, they fail to plan ahead in time for periods when there will be no more. So there is no succession plan, especially among the blacks. By the way, the most complicated estates are black men's estates. They fight very hard, they dispute very hard, and when you are buying property, from a deceased estate, you must be very careful. For as blacks, we usually fight hard in that space. So you need to plan and then appoint an heir. Sometimes groom a person who will be responsible enough to carry your legacy, as it were, forward, and then continue to administer the property for the benefit of the family. I'll give you, for example, recently I was reading about a family called the Ambani family in they're of an Indian origin. One of them is the richest man in Asia. Their own company is known as, I think, realities, properties, and other things in India. So the father started the company some 47 years ago. So the reason why that company is where it is today in the second generation is because there was a succession plan. And for Christians, succession plan also entails teaching the successors, those who are going to take over, the values of Christ, so that the things we would have acquired by God's blessings, as we believe, may also be used to forward His kingdom whilst you are no longer around. I'll give you an example again for a properly done estate, one that's near us. The guys known as the Hose. There's Brian Hose. They are the ones who used to operate the BNC buses. They are from Mutare. I think they did their estate very well. There are some garages they own here in Durban, South Africa, and then in Mutare. So their father was a transport operator. So he instilled those values into his children. And what I know, one of them, Elder Brian, who is now based in Durban, is actually taught his eldest son to operate transport. So they've been in the transport industry for 3 generations now. So you understand. So the reason why they moved the baton from generation to generation is that the younger ones were properly trained, and they instilled the proper values in them. And I loved last week when I saw one of Brian's South African registered truck, which is now being operated by his son called Korish. It had an emblem of a 3 angels message on the back. And I saw it Friday when it was almost Sabbath. They had already parked at their garage. At their garage, there is no one who operates on Saturday, though 3/4 of the tenants there are not actually believers, as in Adventists, but they close down. They know Brian doesn't tolerate anything less than closing on Sabbath. So it's very important, because in most cases, the elderly in our society that I interact with, who I assist with estates, have this biggest burden at heart. Who am I going to leave these things with? Are they going to use these things in a temperate manner? Are they going to be led by reasoning. Always when they do their things, they are going to be applying reasoning? Are they going to act in a rational manner, or they are going to squander everything, like the prodigal son? So, but then that issue in most cases would burden people who, whilst they could, did not take time to instill the proper values in their families. If you read from the book of Genesis, chapter 18, verse 19, when God was going to Sodom, when he passed through Abraham's place, he said this to himself: how can I hide this thing about the destruction, I'll paraphrase, of Sodom and Gomorrah from Abraham? For I will know he will command his children after me. So with estate planning, you also want to prepare an heir, a successor, your kids, to, in a way that they will also follow God's word. God must be able to say, I know Chenge will command his children after me. So it's very important. In most cases, you realize people, certain resources that were within our reach whilst the father was still alive, will also be beyond our reach, by virtue of the fact that a vagabond would have been left to administer the estate, a person who is of a riotous and intemperate disposition. So that's also very important. And also, so you need to instill your values in your kids, in our kids. We need to instill our values in our kids, that we also take care of others. If you are taking care of your mom, they must know, so that, what you wanted may be moved forward. If you read the Bible, he said, a righteous man will leave a legacy for his children's children. So it's very important that whilst you work, whilst you plan, let's have the future in mind, to leave things for our children's children. And it's also important to know, whilst, sometimes when you're still alive, still healthy and young, we never think of death. But let's always have it in mind. Let's also make sure that certain of our assets are debt-free as we plan our estates, especially a house. You must ensure that always your family will have a roof above its head. In most cases, when the father dies, he leaves nothing, and it seems as if the family never had a father. Why? Because he may have failed to plan during his lifetime. So we must also, as we plan our estates, let's also properly ensure that when we die, everything is not taken by your creditors. Your family will remain with something, so that they don't appear like they were always orphaned whilst you were still alive. So it must show. In most cases, you are actually, very, 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 very pained by the state of affairs that exists. Sometimes when the wives are crying at a funeral, they are mostly crying about the lost income because the fathers did not disclose. Then the other thing, you must always disclose things, in most cases, to your spouse. I did a matter where a person failed to disclose what they owned to their spouse. Then they lost two houses, one in Emerald View and one in Mount Pleasant, because someone just took advantage of that, went to the deeds office, teared off the original deed numbers, did something and deleted from the computerized system, then went to the Surveyor General's offices, destroyed records. I've been trying to dig through this thing and trying to investigate it ever since 2015. I got knowledge of this when I was still at the university. That was my old lady who was my friend when I was at the university, who had that, who experienced such a situation, who was at the receiving end. But now they couldn't get anything because the father chose to be, be unfaithful and to hide things from his family. Because when you die, the only person who will take care of your kids is your wife. So let's plan his families, let's work together, and then as we prepare for the second coming of Christ. So guys, that's for today's lesson. May God bless you. I hope we learned something. We'll do write up, and then we'll share, and then we can as well learn. So thank you very much. God bless you. Mara, I am done, so you can you can take off.
I Mara very much for our presentation. Okay, let me try. Okay.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. Oh, sorry,
Hello,
I was
yes.
trying to run away from Mara. She is having a headache. So I was saying thank you very much for a powerful presentation. I don't know if there are questions. I don't know if we have time, if you have time to address them. There are some questions in the comment section.
Okay. All right. Let me look at them.
All right.
Yes. Oh, I see. Some of them are just comments. The first one is from Sena Crow, is a danger zone. Agreed. There are problems there. Okay. Elder Kufa, Elder Matundu, from Mr. Chak, I suppose. Does the 511 marriage give full rights to my spouse to own our properties 100% at my demise, or without the will? Without the will, she doesn't have the full rights. Hello, are you there? So I'll just answer this one in brief. So this is what happens if you have a 511 marriage. So let me start by saying, if you have a 511 marriage, there are two estates in your house. If the husband dies, the wife will have her own estate. If the wife dies, that's a separate estate. So you are not very much secured as far as organization of your affairs is concerned. You know, it doesn't tie anything, doesn't teach. 5.1 doesn't state anything about estate planning. But in most cases, in terms of our laws, there are laws which say if the husband dies, then the wife is entitled to the assets, especially those that pertain to the house they were living in, the assets within the houses. So they are entitled to those ones. But I would still insist that with this kind of knowledge we are having, we must plan properly over and above the 5.1, which is essentially a default position. So other than a default position, we must take a step further as far as preparation of our estates and arrangement of our affairs whilst we are still alive. KC, approach a reputable attorney for that. The process may be a bit abstract to be explained orally. Oh, okay. I think I've explained it. Then people are also free to inbox me. I can also attend to the questions so that we learn. It's very important. Theophany is whose name would our properties be registered. Okay, I see. Let's say they are registered in my name. Okay, I see. That's my brother. Great presentation. Okay, thank you. God bless you. Thank God for that. Sena highlighted about corporate snowflakes. It would appear property laws take primers over family laws. No, that seems like an academic question for debate. So anyway, I can call for I can receive any further questions in my inbox. I'll attend to them. I'll gladly respond. Where I don't have a ready answer, I can always get you the necessary information from the books, from the law, from further researches. But as as follow-up questions to this discussion, me and my team would be ready to just assist you guys on follow-up questions for free in the spirit of the Lord. Thank you very much. Libs, you can over to you again.
Right. Thanks very much, Norman. Yeah, I think everyone you have had, you can inbox these guys. I'll also inbox them with my questions for free. I think that's something that you should underline. To close, we'll just have a prayer from Tinashe Rukweza. Tinashe.
Okay, let us pray. Dear Father God in heaven, we want to thank you for the time you gave us to learn. May you please help us as your children, firstly to acquire wealth as our families, as we continue to keep our families. We also pray, Lord, that you also give us wisdom to secure this wealth when we are gone. We also pray, dear Lord, that you help each and everyone in this meeting who's trying whatever they can to actually leave an inheritance for their children. May you please help them. May you please bless them. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Thanks, Norman. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll end our meeting now. Then let's meet again on Friday and Saturday. May God bless you all. We can greet each other as we part. Thanks, Norman. Thanks,
Welcome.
Thanks so much for the presentation.
Okay. Hi, Dan.
I'm okay.
How's your wife and family?
She's good. And
That's good. Okay, cheers.
Makutozira udhara.